everybody. Last summer I got the chance to visit a dozen of interesting sites in Sicily, southern Italy. There were impressive Romaic megaliths, absolutely massive rock-cut ruins, interesting vehicle tracks, ancient vehicle tracks, and a pyramid very similar to those found in Mauritius. First, I would like to tell you about the book which those who favor the theories of Zachariah Sitchin and Velikovsky will certainly find very interesting. This is I Know the Answers by Simon Kachetrian, also available in Russian and Armenian languages. The author, this by the way is not the Simon from the Sardinia expedition, but apparently all Simons like to solve mysteries. So the author has expanded those theories of Velikovsky and Sitchin into realms like the origin of the universe and the celestial bodies of the volcanoes and the lakes. And of course, the purpose of all the megalithic and dolmen structures on Earth. The book is available on Amazon and iknowtheanswers.com. And we are back to the ruins of Sicily. So, in overall, I could say that the proportions of the rock-cut ruins are more gigantic even than central Italy. However, since there are not that many in number as in central Italy, they have managed to absolutely restrict the access to most of them. But even from whatever one can see from the sites which are opened and over the fences with the fenced sites, again as usual, both the flow of tourists and the tension in the pages of the official history are always focused on the more recent historic sites, while the older ones are presented from such an angle that people will not understand their true importance in forming everything which we call civilization. And as a result, people are left with the wrong impression that it was the Romaic people, most commonly known as Romans, who were the bedrock of our civilization, which is not the case. A very practical illustration of what I'm saying from the Valley of the Temples in Agrigento. The swarms of tourists are directed towards the Romaic temple. When they walk on the top of the plateau, they have no clue about the vast complex of rock-cut ruins just below their feet. Of course, the access to that complex is restricted, and it is barely mentioned in the popular information for tourists as some sort of churches or hiding places of the early Christians, which makes it look centuries younger than the temple on the top, which, according to mainstream dating, was built some 5 centuries before Christ even. Although the megalithic temples are made of the same stone as the bedrock, they are made of this very same bedrock, their erosion, their weathering seems to be much less than that of the rock-cut ruins. Actually, at places, even the original plaster, which used to cover all these beautiful fluted columns, has survived, while the rock-cut ruins, which by definition are much more stable, obviously they are part of the bedrock, they have faced such a deterioration that what to speak of plaster remaining on them, because the rock-cut ruins were also originally plastered, what to speak of any plaster, we have entire massive chunks, parts of the plateau missing. The second episode from the Sicily expedition will be about the ancient vehicle tracks and rock-cut roads, and there you will see as well massive roads cut in two by the process of this plateau falling apart. That's how old they are, obviously older than the temples. The network of massive tunnels has lost the battle with time, and all we have now is like pieces of a puzzle, something like a very distant echo in time, reminding us that we don't know anything about our most ancient history. And here the rock-cut ruins are decorated with modern Romaic statues, combined with the assurances from the penguins that this is all Romaic. The people have abandoned inquiring into the real, extremely interesting, most ancient past. People are convinced that the most interesting that could have possibly happened there is some sort of monkey using a stick to scratch its hind parts. And this remarkable ignorance and indifference are very, very modern phenomena, even as close as 100 years ago. People had much more keen interest in the magic races which built all these rock-cut ruins long time ago, and the DNA of which is still in the blood of most modern people. These are the giant Atlas statues in the Valley of the Temples in Agrigento. I think that if we could still hear and understand their voices when they talk to us, we would hear something like, lift your eyesight from the computer and the cell phone and experience a wider consciousness, the way the people who made us did. Let's go to Syracuse, where we have only rock-cut ruins without the Romaic stuff on the top to cast shadow on them with questionable interpretations. Small percentage of the ruins of Syracuse are open to the public, the rest is behind fences and lock. But even from whatever one could see, such proportions, this can be compared only with Turkey or Petra in Jordan. Many places around the city of Syracuse, its ancient skeleton surfaces. For example, these massive walls are officially said to be a quarry. A quarry, of course, anything is possible, but the walls are a bit too good for a quarry. At other places in Syracuse where we find such actually quite perfect walls, there would be usually entrances to all kinds of tunnels and rooms. How can we check if there is anything here when it is all double and triple fenced. The place looked so overgrown that I doubt that there could be even dinosaurs still lurking down there in the jungle. They fenced it so well. Now, from here you can get an idea of the depth of this entire rock cut thing. And here, just a short distance away, there was another site which was open to the public and had the same quality of walls. So we are talking about very massive complexes of rock cut ruins. Here, this also looks like an arch of something down there in the jungle. And that something and many other somethings don't appear to be simple quarries or early Christian churches or hiding places, but rather quite complex engineering systems of rooms and large halls with amazing acoustics and water supply and everything else we call civilization. Just for a few moments I will take you to a completely different part of Sicily to show you what really looks like a simple quarry. Yes, this really looks like a place where stone would have been quarried by very simple means and tools. But to fence up high quality rock cut structures the height of skyscrapers and not have any access to them and tell us, don't you worry, it's a simple quarry, well, I don't know how about that. And now let's head back to Syracuse, where behind fences, showing above the canopy of jungles with dinosaurs, lurk massive complexes of rock-cut ruins. Actually, abandoned, overgrown paths for tourists and fallen apart railings are all over these closed, fenced areas. Apparently, it was a tourist park not so long ago. And I'm sure that the story with the fenced and closed park is very similar to the situation in central Italy, where all these ruins got cleaned some 100 or 200 years ago, when people were still able to think for themselves and were interested keenly in their ancient history. But as everything started overgrowing after the initial cleaning and the wooden railings started rotting, they never thought to repair them. The only plan was to collect as much money in entry fees as possible and then use them for more important stuff, because in Italy they don't have like public services. They don't even maintain their roads or bridges. They let them fall apart, just collapse down together, the bridges together with the cars on them, and the people die. That's okay for the elected leaders of Italy, because the money goes for more important projects. Like, for example, now in Europe we finance our own European Union army so that we can spread even further this type of democracy. And we are already at the next site, called Noto Antica, the medieval sections of which by themselves were quite impressive. I felt as if I'm back at the Star Forts of Malta, where the people look like ants. Now just remember how big are the ruins of these towers that you see now. So those same medieval towers are now here on the left, and on the right you see the doors and the windows of the rock-cut ruins below them. The entire side of the canyon, at a height much more than the medieval towers, was man-made, hewn. This entire cliff, starting from above the rocket windows now on the left, all the way to the bottom of where the jungle grows, right at the bottom of this footage, appeared to be artificially smoothened. It was quite impressive to see. It was like half a mountain, something like an absolutely massive via cava, and these are the small proper size via cavas again at Noto Antica, which was of course all built on rock cut ruins, and yet it is supposed to be a medieval site officially. So before going to Sicily, I've heard that there were pyramids there, very similar to those found in Mauritius and the Canary Islands. However, from whatever I could gather about them, they have never been properly studied, and there aren't any even hypotheses in terms of who, when, and why might have built them. So I was lucky to encounter one of them, and I can confirm yes, they are really such pyramids. It's not just rumors. And from its overall looks, I would say it is at least a couple of 100 years old, because its quality was considerably better than the general terraced walls the peasants still build in this area. Unfortunately, it appears that the tiny memory cards with the footage from that day got corrupt, so I've got no images to show you from the pyramid, but in general, there's supposed to be dozens or hundreds of them. A serious study would require a lengthy expedition in that region. Maybe one day we can do that. In general, during this short expedition, I could visit a third or maximum a half of all the sites which I wanted to visit, so I guess at some point in the future there will be at least one more expedition to Sicily. If somebody from that region happens to be watching this and would be potentially interested in working together with me for in terms of uncovering, mapping, and trying to figure out the pyramids, please feel free to contact me at sicily@megaliths.org. And the rest of this video will be just extra footage from all the sites that one could expect to see in Sicily in terms of ruins of the older generation.